Greetings, class, and welcome to Module 4 of ED 621A. Now we're planning for instruction, designing learning opportunities for your lesson. You've all waded through the first section. You're starting to get familiar with the language and really making a cohesive lesson for students based on the backwards design model. Our goal now is for you to demonstrate understanding of the relationship among the learning opportunities, learning objectives, assessments, essential questions, enduring understanding, transfer goals, and content standards of your UBD lesson by designing and completing said lesson. So it's like a big ladder. You've been creating this ladder. And you're going to go down so you can come right back up. The objectives for this module are for you to design learning opportunities for your backwards design lesson that are directly aligned with the lesson's assessments and objectives. And through designing the lesson learning opportunities, you will answer the overarching question: what learning experiences will enable students to achieve the desired results of the lesson and the content? So what are those learning experiences going to be? Read and watch and use the resources provided for this module. Read UBD Chapter 9, read the introduction to the book Q tasks, and complete the checking for understanding and reading response for Module 4. Your product for Module 4 is to create learning opportunities which include instructional activities. It's a set of instructional activities. Continuing your work for Module 1, 2, and 3 on the lesson design template, design learning opportunities, instructional activities for students which are connected directly with the lesson's assessments and objectives. Make sure there is a hook at the beginning and a closure to the lesson at the end so that the students know they have reached the objective of the lesson. Remembering you're writing a short-term lesson plan and this is a set of instructional activities that address the lesson topic. Submit the learning opportunities to the assignment Dropbox as usual. Please submit, again, the new material in red so that I know that it's new, so that I know that that's what I'm grading. That's why I'm having you do that. And then your final product for the class, which is to finalize your backwards design lesson and submit it to the Dropbox and then complete the end of course reflection. And you will have a chance to do a peer review with your lesson so that you can look at the elements of it and make sure they're all in place and get ideas from your critical friends before submitting your final lesson for evaluation. So let's look and see what's in Module 4. That was like a big treasure chest. Okay, so you'll have your screencast, you'll have the slides of the PowerPoint. You'll have video clip 8 things students absolutely need to learn, and it really has to do with the social and emotional part of learning. And then your reading response module, your learning opportunities section, and then finally, this is the part where you're submitting it in red. I don't have that written here, but this is that part, and then here's your final lesson. And so you know that the discussion is where your final reflection goes. So here's the end of course reflection for A. So that's where you'll be submitting your discussion, your final reflection. So with that, let's just take a quick look at where to, which is something that Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe actually put together as an acronym to help guide the establishing of the learning activities. Now, please remember, you're just keeping it small. You have a lesson topic, you have a lesson theme, and your activities are going to bring students to completion of that lesson, not a whole unit. The stage where specific learning activities are planned to accompany each unit. This says unit. The lessons designed in this stage should be based on the desired results from Stage 1 and Stage 2. So your lesson, singular, will be based on your Stage 1 and Stage 2 work. And then where to is the acronym for planning the steps. Now the planning for the unit or a lesson is the same. It's just the scope is different. The lesson is smaller. Here is the acronym. W is where are we going, why, and what is expected. And that's what you did when you established your standards, goals, and objectives. How will we equip students for expected performances? That's what you did when you designed your assessments. How will we think, revise? That is formative assessment also, and student self-evaluation, which goes on the next one. How will students self-evaluate and reflect on their learning, which you can put in the assessments the self-evaluation. How will we tailor learning to varied needs and interests and learning styles has to do with differentiation, universal design for learning, multimodal learning, however it is that you're learning about how to accommodate a variety of student needs in the classroom. And how will we organize the sequence of learning, which is also called scaffolding. And scaffolding is a big thing in terms of designing lessons and designing curriculum. It is that ladder. So this whole lesson is a ladder. It's scaffolded to create an understanding by design lesson. You are also scaffolding instruction in the same way, piece by piece, leading students toward an ultimate goal. So for W, of course, where are we going, why, and what is expected? One of the things, especially when you get into 621C, where you're actually designing rubrics, is you need to build in that piece where students are being informed of what the evaluation criteria actually are. So you have your rubrics for this class, and I presented them to you at the beginning for you to look through because you're adults and you can do that. Post and discuss essential questions and invite students to generate their own questions as appropriate. You can ask students to identify personal goals. You can give diagnostic tests or pre-tests. You can use know, want to learn, and have learned as a pre-assessment, KWL. It's a graphic organizer. If anybody's interested in that, I can certainly send you a copy of that organizer and check for misconceptions. So how are you going to hook them? Use odd facts or examples. Use provocative entry or hook questions. Present them with a mystery. So you can have them watch a video. You can have them play a game. You can have them fill out a graphic organizer. You can have them take a walk around the school. There are different things you can do to hook them into thinking about what you're asking them to do. Present them with a problem that can't be solved until the end of the unit or even the end of a lesson. Like, here's our problem, and how are we going to get to resolve this little problem of ours? Create a role player situation, and of course technology. And you've had a really nice technology class, which I encourage you to go back to your resources there and use. So how will we equip students for expected performances? This is the instructional strategy piece. How are you going to equip them? How are you going to help them acquire that language? Access your understanding and experience with research-based instructional practices, Marzano on vocabulary. So what is it that you're actually going to be teaching? Consider strategies that work well with diverse learners and multiple intelligences. Some of you might know about Gardner's multiple intelligences. This is another way of working with a diverse group of learners. Literacy strategies, including those we've highlighted in the course, become powerful ways to equip students for learning. So how are you teaching them the language of the content you're teaching even? Not just literacy like how to read or how to comprehend what they're reading, but actually how to use the language of the content you're teaching. So how are we going to rethink or revise? And this is all about formative assessment and learning and deepening learning. When we teach students to revise, literally re-envision their work, we develop flexibility and critical thinking. There are 3 elements. And so children, adults, the same. We all need to develop this skill of re-envisioning, of flexibility and critical thinking, that what we have done isn't the final. It's probably never the final. Writers know this. Things are never really done. You just have to let it go. Rethinking in relation to big ideas or important concepts. Revising or refining skills, products, and performances, and reflecting, building metacognitive skills for students, which is one of the reasons why feedback is often best presented as questions and not as do this differently, but, or suggestions. How will students be encouraged to self-evaluate? Some programs even require these, like there's a math program that requires tickets out the door as the evaluation of the program now. Metacognitive writing prompts, quick writes, student self-assessment using rubrics or checklists, teacher-student conferences. In consideration of revising and this E2, which is encourage to self-evaluate, a planned element of revision may need to become part of stage 2 in your planning template for other evidence. So you may end up actually building that in. And if you don't build it in the lesson, you may end up building it in the unit. This, and you can't see it very well, but you'll be able to see it in the PowerPoint, it's just the different stages of the backwards design: objectives, assessments, learning opportunities, learning opportunities and instructional activities, and then differentiations. I use the word differentiation, universal design for learning, and multimodal instruction. Please use what you know it to mean, but that you're working to provide as many different opportunities to learn for all the students in your class all the time. So when you think of multimodal learning, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, you always provide a visual and auditory and a kinesthetic doorway for students in a lesson, in a unit, for them to access the learning and the information to the best of your ability. So, and these are just examples of things you can use as instructional strategies that you're articulating on the right side of your lesson plan template, because we're really looking at how are you thinking about working with students with diverse needs. Not eventually, as a seasoned teacher, and as you become more fluid with lesson design and lesson presentation, you're going to be doing these things as an embedded part of your lesson. They're not really separate. But right now, what I'm looking for and what we're looking for is that you can actually articulate what you're doing specifically for students with diverse learning needs. And the best way to do that is to think about a classroom you're working in right now, and that is your audience. That's your target for this lesson, hopefully. And then this is about tailoring learning styles. We just talked about that, right? It's incredibly important, and T reminds us of that. You can differentiate both processes, how learning happens, and you can differentiate products. What is expected from students, and content, the different levels of content in the material. Like, for example, you'll have one student do with research on one notable personality in U.S. history, and another student will do 3 notable personalities in U.S. history because they can. And one person, it's just, you're glad they're doing one, but they're still doing the same content. You're still looking at the same standard. You're just adjusting the content for that particular student. Here we talked about scaffolding. How will we organize the sequence of learning? Scaffolding learning experiences. You want to go from I do, we do, we do, we do, you do. Sort of modified Teach Like a Champion. But basically, you're scaffolding the learning experience so that you're giving them the foundation, and then slowly they're becoming independent with the material that they're learning until they can do it on their own. So this class is like the beginning scaffolding. We're at the beginning where there's a lot of coaching and a lot of feedback. And then eventually you'll be more comfortable doing this on your own. You'll be able to look at curriculum and say, yeah, I know what that is. Yeah, I know it needs to be changed. Or no, that's really good. So that's how you decide. So a lot of, if you want to talk about zone of proximal development, a lot of coaching to independent work. And then the other thing is that you get the modeling, you get the practice, you get the independent work, and then you do the assessment. Same thing. It's all scaffolding. So a good learning opportunity, a good instructional activity, is meaningful and relevant. It helps students meet the objective. Scaffolds student learning and skills toward the assessment, is flexible, aligns with, and matches the type of knowledge and skills in the objective. So just because the game addresses the content doesn't necessarily mean it's a good learning opportunity. Games are great, but games need to really have a purpose, or it's a waste of time. It's just students having fun, and then you're all losing out. So your next steps are to start designing your learning opportunities or instructional activities of the lesson. So it will just be 3 to 5 learning opportunities that will lead toward the achievement of the lesson goal and objective. Use this acronym WHERE TO as a guiding organizer. They're not chronologically arranged. It's just how convenient that acronym came up. And use it as a revision tool. And you can use it in B when we do a peer review. We're going to be doing a peer review of our unit. That's always a good tool to use. But I do have a rubric for that. So this is just something that you can use on your own as a self-evaluation tool. And then submit your lesson with the learning opportunities to the Dropbox along with your reading response. And then, now after I give you feedback on that, you tweak it, you finalize it, and you submit the entire lesson all in black. See, this one will be in red. This section, the learning opportunities, is going to be in red for this section. And then everything will just be normal when you submit your final backwards design. You'll submit your final UBD lesson, you'll complete the reflection, and use the rubric to self-assess before you turn in your lesson. Just make sure you have everything in place. That's what rubrics are for. They're for you to use, to plan, and make sure you've hit all the important elements that's being looked for in the lesson. If you have any questions, you know you can contact me. I'll be glad to give you any feedback, and I appreciate all your hard work. Tears may have been shed, I don't know, but hopefully we've sorted everything out. And I expect by the time that you are looking at this that you have put together some marvelous lessons. I'm looking forward to seeing them. So thanks for your hard work, and I'll see you in 621B.